The Avengers is a really weird movie because, like, it used to be my favorite movie, like, ever when it came out. Like, nothing could even compare to it. Now I go back to it, and while I still do think it's a really good movie, I definitely have a lot more problems with it. Don't get me wrong, I still think that this marks, like, a legendary moment in cinema history, but, like, I do think that, like, the beginning half is a little slow and almost a little aimless at times. I feel like Loki, while they did do a good job at establishing, like, the power that he has, I feel like he just wasn't that threatening of a main villain. I don't know why they made the main villain of this movie like a villain that was already defeated by only one Avenger in a different movie, like just because he has the Tesseract now. Once again, made for a perfectly entertaining movie at the time, but like I start to get more critical of it and start to notice these little things like, maybe that's why that felt a little less tense. Whereas, like, you obviously have, like, the reverse of that in Infinity War with Thanos. I think this is probably, like, the strongest the character dynamics have been in the Avengers because, like, there's so much conflict, except for maybe, like, Civil War, obviously. But I feel like there's a lot of, like, interconnected, like, relationships rather than, like, teams. A lot of the conflicts have, like, really good dialogue and just, like, ideas in general that get set into motion in later movies. Like Thor's arrogance really comes through, the paranoia of Bruce really comes through. Like there's just a lot of really cool stuff there, and I think that like really highlighted their individuality at the time, which was really necessary because obviously like this is when the MCU just was like getting started. This was their first like big interconnected movie. Led to so many absolutely iconic moments. I think that that's what this movie's strong suit is. I think that it just had such strong writing both visually and dialogue wise that it was just so easy to appreciate everything about this movie. It still has so many quotable lines, and even going back to them, I still think that those moments and lines are amazing, even without like the fact that they're just iconic or called back to in future movies. I just think that they're all really good. Fight scenes were really cool. They answered a lot of really cool questions, like what would happen if Thor's hammer like hit Captain America's shield? Like could the Hulk lift Thor's hammer? Like all this type of cool stuff. It was just fan service galore, but like in the absolute best way possible. And like using Iron Man's blasters on Captain America's shield so he could like redirect them at the enemies. Like just stuff like that's so cool. I feel like this is when people really started gaining faith in the entire idea of the MCU, because to be honest, I feel like back then a lot of the movies, while they might have been perceived pretty well at the time, I feel like in hindsight it was kind of like Iron Man was really good, and then a lot of like hit or miss movies, and most of them were kind of like, yeah, that was fine. It wasn't Iron Man, though. Like, they kind of came out of the gate super strong, and then we got to Avengers. But everything in the middle, like, that led up to it, which is super important, like, just didn't feel that important. And I think that if current Marvel says anything, I think that bringing characters together, even with their bad movies, doesn't automatically make it a good movie. And so I think that this movie really showed that it did stand on its own two legs. It didn't even age poorly. It's just that I'm able to be a lot more critical of it now in hindsight. But overall, I mean, it was still obviously a great movie if I still enjoyed it even today without the star power. And I kind of wish Marvel would go back to that.